Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Terms and News. My name is Shubhangi Singh and today we are going to discuss the important terms and concepts that have been in news in the past few days. So we'll be starting with the first term that has been in news, that is catastrophe bond, that is CAT bonds. So when we are talking about catastrophe bonds, they are basically special financial instruments. So you have to imagine them just like bonds. Whenever you buy a bond, what do you get in that situation? You are going to pay a sum to buy that bond, and based on that you will get bond yield, bond returns you will be getting. But in this particular context, what happens? The investor will make an investment, and if there is any catastrophe that occurs, then the total claim that you were supposed to get, that will reduce then the threshold value. Let's just say you invested 100, it might go up to 90. So you might lose some principal amount, but interest would be given to you. However, if there is no such disaster or catastrophic event that occurs, in that situation, your principal remains intact, you get the interest as well. So in this context, government and insurance companies issue these bonds so that they can raise money before any disaster is taking place. When we are talking about CAT bonds, it is also important for us to understand that they are usually sponsored by sovereign governments so that periodic premiums are given to the investors and there is some guarantee about the bonds that are being issued. Furthermore, they are issued through intermediaries. Now the government will not directly go and give you this bond. This is given through an intermediate organization or person, usually multilateral institutions, such as to ensure that the issuance and credibility risks are not associated with the government and the global investors are also able to invest. So that is why global investors also purchase these funds apart from the other funds they like to invest in. Investors are attracted towards CAT bonds because we have promising returns and higher returns, and they also give diversification benefits. In this context, CAT bonds are the one where the bond yields and the coupon rate depends on the risk level of the disaster. So if there is a higher probability of the risk, the coupon rate would be higher. If there is a lower probability of risk, the lower coupon rates would be existing. So the reason we get to see CAT bonds in news, because Kerala state has asked center to issue catastrophe bonds so as to ensure protection against disaster linked financial risks which are present across the state. Now on this note, we will be moving to the next term that we are doing today. The next term that we are covering today is urban cooperative banks. So when we are talking about urban cooperative banks, the first thing that we need to understand is what are cooperative banks. Cooperative banks are such banks where the members are also the employees or the owners of the bank. So when such cooperative banks, when they exist in urban and semi-urban areas, they are known as urban cooperative banks. So you can understand them as a locally owned bank, but which is existing in cities and township areas. They are the ones which are managed by the people who are its customers as well. When we are talking about this very concept, when we are talking about cooperative banks, we have divided them broadly into two categories: urban cooperative banks and rural cooperative banks. And which are further, if you look at urban cooperative banks, they are divided into two categories. We have scheduled urban commercial banks and then the non-scheduled ones. The scheduled commercial banks, they might be operating in multi-state area or single state. And in this context, when we are talking about operations of urban cooperative banks, that is looked into by RBI, the financial operations. The management here, this aspect is managed by, regulated by the state government itself. The reason UCBs have been recently in news because RBI has planned a new eligibility norm especially for urban cooperative banks and the licenses that are issued for them. Now on this note, we will be moving to the next term that has been in news, that is Meteotsunami. So when we talk about tsunamis, they are usually linked to earthquakes and the waves which are generated, the monstrous waves which are generated because of the movement of the plates and disruption and energy that starts from there. But when we are talking about Meteotsunami, This is a very tsunami-like situation, but this is not caused by movement of plates or any sort of earthquake. This situation is created by weather. So this is a possibility that can be happening when there is a sudden change in air pressure, or there is a sudden fast moving storm which is occurring, which is leading to rapid rise in sea level and sudden coastal flooding. That is why if you have to distinguish between tsunami, the reason of tsunami is tectonic, it is because of the movement of plate, earthquake. But when we are talking about meteotsunami, here we have the atmospheric weather related reason. The reason this meteotsunami has been in news, we have seen meteotsunami like phenomena in Argentina on the Atlantic coast, which injured more than 35 people. Now we will be moving on to the next term that we are covering today, that is Charophytes. So when we are talking about Charophytes, they are nothing but a type of green algae. So fossil records have shown that they date back to Silurian period, that is almost 443 million years ago, and this was the period, Silurian period, which marked the transition from plants from water to land. So charophytes are the one which are considered closest living relatives of land plants. So there was the transition which happened in Silurian period from water plants to land plants, and they origined in this particular period. That is why they are the closest relatives of land plants which are present in water. Now when we are talking about charophytes, their habitat is usually peaty or sand muddy soil, and they are usually the first organisms to colonize, especially in a cleared or a disturbed freshwater area. You will find them in all continents except for Antarctica, and they play a very important role in maintaining lake as well as fresh water ecosystems health. So they are symbolic. If you want to understand the health of a lake or a freshwater ecosystem, it can be understood by the presence of charophytes itself. They are very important in stabilizing the lake beds, producing oxygen, improving the water clarity and supporting aquatic biodiversity, and that is why they are the indicator of clean and healthy freshwater ecosystems. Recently they have been in news because there have been recommendation of reintroducing charophytes so that the water quality and the biodiversity in lakes can be improved. On this note, we will be moving on to the next term that we are doing today, that is aerosols. If you want to understand aerosols, imagine very tiny solid or liquid particles, but they are the ones which are suspended in gas. So they would be referred to as aerosols. They remain suspended in the atmosphere for days to weeks, and they gradually get settled or they are washed out by rain or snow. So when we are talking about aerosols, how do they come into the atmosphere? The origin of them is human made. They come from burning of fossil fuels or biomass and biofuel combustion. When it is burned, that is when aerosols are released. When we are talking about aerosols, they are also naturally present in desert, dust, sea spray and volcanic eruption, and they have a direct impact on climate because they have a cooling effect. Some of the aerosols, they reflect the incoming sunlight back to the space. They also have warming effect where certain aerosols absorb the solar radiation and heat up the atmosphere. Especially when we are talking about warming effect, black carbon is the one which is known for the highest sun rays absorption and protecting heat in the atmosphere itself. Furthermore, aerosols play a very important role in cloud formation because they are the ones which can act as a cloud condensation nuclei. That means they can give the surface where condensation can take place. They are the ones which can alter cloud properties also and their radiative effects as well. That is why they have a huge influence on climate patterns. Because they reduce the solar irradiance, they also impact the efficacy related to solar power plants, and they are also related to the disruption that we see in transport and aviation, especially if there is a dust storm or volcanic eruption. The reason aerosols have been this time in news is because of the impact on human health, because they majorly contribute to the poor air quality. And if you look at the Delhi NCR and also across India the air quality has been plummeting. They contribute as fine particulate matter and their diameter is less than 2.5 micrometers. They can penetrate deep into lungs and cause respiratory as well as cardiovascular diseases. The next term that we are going to do is Weimar Triangle. Weimar Triangle is basically a term which is given to a strategic cooperation framework which exists between France, Germany and Poland. It was created to ensure that there is strength and European unity. There is a proper coordination between foreign and security policies of these three countries, and this is a political communication alliance, not a military alliance like NATO or Shanghai Cooperation Organization. The reason this has been in news is because our External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, he participated in India's first ever engagement with Weimar Triangle, and that was all from my end. I'll be coming up with more terms and news every week. That was all. Thank you so much.